They say asking for help is a sign of strength, that reaching out shows courage, that vulnerability is the gateway to connection, that no one can do everything alone, and admitting you need support is wisdom, not weakness. But what if you've never been able to ask? What if the words get stuck in your throat every single time? What if the thought of reaching out feels more terrifying than drowning in silence? What if you've spent your entire life learning that asking for help isn't safe, that it's not strength or courage, but a betrayal of everything you've had to become to survive? We live in a world that glorifies independence, self-reliance, the person who handles everything on their own, the one who never complains, never falters, never needs anyone. And on the surface, that person looks strong, capable, admirable. But beneath that carefully constructed exterior, there is often a quiet, unrelenting exhaustion, a loneliness so deep it has no name, a belief so old it feels like bone. I cannot ask, I must not need, I have to do this alone. And so they do. They carry burdens that were never meant to be carried solo. They solve problems in isolation. They break in private. They drown while appearing to swim. And no one knows. Because asking for help has never been an option. Not because they're proud, not because they don't want support, but because somewhere along the way they learned that needing help is dangerous, that asking makes you a burden, that showing your struggle invites rejection, disappointment, or worse, abandonment. This is not a story about self-sufficiency. This is a story about survival. About the quiet armor people build when they've learned that the world is safer when you need nothing from it. About the psychology of those who would rather collapse than reach out. About what it costs to live as if you are an island, and what it means to finally, slowly, learn that you were never meant to be one. Let's begin. There is a specific kind of silence that lives inside people who never ask for help. It's not the silence of peace. It's not the silence of contentment. It's the silence of a door that was closed so long ago, you've forgotten it was ever open. The silence of needs that were ignored until they learned to stop speaking. The silence of a child who reached out once, twice, 3 times, and learned that reaching out only makes things worse. If you are someone who cannot ask for help, you know this silence intimately. You know what it feels like to be struggling, visibly falling apart, and still saying, "I'm fine," when someone asks. You know the strange paralysis that happens when you try to form the words, "I need help." How your throat tightens, how the sentence dies before it reaches your lips, how saying it feels like admitting defeat, like proving you're weak, like exposing a part of yourself that must stay hidden at all costs. And the confusion that comes with it is real, because you see other people ask for help so easily. You watch them reach out, admit they're struggling, ask for support, and the world doesn't collapse. They aren't rejected, they aren't shamed, they aren't abandoned. But when you imagine doing the same, every cell in your body screams no. Every instinct says it's not safe. Every part of you knows that asking is not an option, so you don't. You carry everything yourself, you figure it out, you push through, you solve the problem alone, even when it takes twice as long, even when it costs you your health, your sleep, your sanity. Because asking for help feels more dangerous than suffering in silence. And here's what makes this so insidious. From the outside, you look strong. People admire you. They say things like, "You're so independent," or "You never need anything from anyone," or "I wish I could be as self-sufficient as you." And you smile. You accept the compliment. But inside, you know the truth. You know this isn't strength. This is survival. This is a defense mechanism so deeply embedded that it feels like identity. This is what happens when asking for help was never safe to begin with. They say people who don't ask for help are just stubborn, proud, too independent for their own good, that they need to learn to let people in. That it's just a matter of changing their mindset, of being more open, of practicing vulnerability. But the truth is, people who never ask for help didn't choose this. They didn't wake up one day and decide to carry the world alone. They learned it. They absorbed it. It was taught to them in 1,000 small moments that said, "Your needs are too much. Your pain is inconvenient. Your struggle is a burden. And if you want to be loved, if you want to be safe, you must need nothing." Think about the child who asks for comfort and is told to toughen up, the child who cries and is told they're being dramatic, the child who needs attention and is made to feel like they're asking for too much, the child who reaches for help and is met with irritation, dismissal, or silence. That child learns quickly. They learn that needing help makes people pull away, that asking makes you unwanted, that the safest way to exist is to become small, to need nothing, to handle everything on your own. And so they do. They become the child who stops crying, the child who figures things out alone, the child who learns to soothe themselves, to solve their own problems, to carry their own weight, not because they're naturally independent, but because dependence was punished. And that lesson doesn't disappear with age, it calcifies. It becomes the foundation of how they move through the world. It becomes the lens through which they see relationships, interpret care, and navigate need. It becomes the quiet belief that governs every moment of struggle. I cannot ask. I must not need. If I reach out, I will be too much. This is not stubbornness. This is not pride. This is an adaptation. A survival strategy born from a childhood where asking for help felt dangerous, where vulnerability was met with rejection, where needing something from someone meant risking the very connection you needed most. And when you grow up like that, you don't just stop asking for help. You stop knowing how. You stop believing it's even possible. You stop trusting that anyone would want to help you. Because deep down, beneath all the logic and all the years, there is still a part of you that believes, if I ask, they will leave. From a psychological perspective, the inability to ask for help is often rooted in what attachment theory calls avoidant attachment. It's a relational style that develops when a child's needs for comfort, connection, and support are consistently unmet or dismissed, when caregivers are emotionally unavailable, when they respond to distress with frustration or neglect, when they emphasize independence over interdependence. The child learns to suppress their needs. They learn that closeness is unreliable, that depending on others leads to disappointment, that the safest way to survive is to become self-sufficient. And so they develop what looks like independence, but is actually a defense mechanism, deactivation. They deactivate their attachment system. They shut down the part of them that reaches for others. They learn to manage distress alone, to solve problems in isolation, to avoid relying on anyone. And this works. For a while. It keeps them safe from the pain of rejection. It protects them from the vulnerability of needing someone who might not show up. It allows them to function in a world that feels unreliable. But it comes at a cost, because the part of the brain that processes connection, the part that registers safety in relationships, that experiences co-regulation, that knows how to receive care, begins to atrophy, not literally, but functionally. The neural pathways that link distress to seeking support become underused. The signals that say, I need help, get rerouted into, I must handle this alone. And over time, asking for help stops feeling like an option. It starts feeling like a threat. This is why, for people with avoidant attachment, asking for help doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels destabilizing. It triggers the nervous system. It activates the very fear they've spent their entire life avoiding, the fear of being too much, of being rejected, of being abandoned because they needed something. And so, they don't ask. They carry the weight. They drown in silence. And they tell themselves it's fine, that they're fine, that they don't need help anyway. But beneath that, beneath the calm exterior, there is often a deep, aching loneliness, a longing for connection that has never been allowed to speak. But here's the part that makes this pattern so hard to break. It's not just about the past. It's not just about what you learned as a child. It's about what you continue to tell yourself now. It's about the internal war that happens every time you think about asking for help. Because even when you want to reach out, even when you're drowning and you know you need support, there is a voice inside you that says don't. Don't be a burden. Don't inconvenience them. Don't show them how much you're struggling. Don't make them regret caring about you. And that voice is loud, it's convincing. It's backed by years of evidence, by memories of times you asked and were dismissed, by the fear that if you show your need, you will be too much. And so you stay silent. You handle it yourself. You push through. And every time you do, the belief gets stronger. I am alone in this. I have to be. This is the prison. Not the inability to ask, but the belief that asking is dangerous. The belief that your needs are too much. The belief that if you reach out, you will be rejected, and that rejection will confirm what you've always feared, that you are unworthy of help, that you are too broken, too needy, too much. And so you protect yourself from that pain by never asking, by never testing the theory, by never giving anyone the chance to prove you wrong. Because if you don't ask, you can't be rejected. And if you can't be rejected, you can stay safe. But the cost of that safety is connection. The cost of that protection is intimacy. The cost of never asking for help is a life lived in isolation. Even when you're surrounded by people who would help you if they knew you needed it. Because here's the painful truth: people cannot read your mind. They cannot see your silent suffering. They cannot help you if you never tell them you need it. And the tragedy of people who never ask for help is that they often suffer alone, not because no one cares, but because no one knows. There's another layer to this too, one that often goes unspoken. For many people who never ask for help, the refusal to reach out is not just about fear of rejection, it's about control. When you've grown up in chaos, when you've lived through instability, unpredictability, neglect or trauma, one of the only things you can control is yourself. You can't control other people. You can't control whether they'll show up, whether they'll care, whether they'll hurt you. But you can control your own needs. You can suppress them. You can manage them. You can make sure you never have to depend